Where is it? It's going live now. All right, yeah, that's going now. All right, I'm still a little bit getting set up. All right, I just want to pull up the PDF.
Yeah, I've got
on my phone.
Me too, except for my battery's quickly draining.
What kind of phone do you have?
It's an iPhone.
Oh, I don't.
It's okay. It'll last.
I have a charger somewhere, but I have no idea off the top of my head. I have notes.
I kind of have notes. I like almost didn't know where to start. Which we can talk about,
yeah, I don't know either. I mean, there's nobody watching yet.
I didn't send the thing out yet. I was waiting.
I sent it to Piper, but I think Piper and Tom are doing something tonight. Like at a show, or they're playing a show, or something. Something like that.
I mean, if we just got to talk about it with nobody in the chat, I would not mind. But that sounds relaxing.
So I I have a different version. I mean, it's the same version. I just found a different one to download because
They are different though.
Are they different? How
Well,
different?
not that different. Not very different, but they're weirdly. I thought, we could. These are all like talking points that I was gonna. But I thought that maybe they were translations, but no. He wrote it in English. I don't know why they're not very different, but they are like a little. I don't think it'll make any difference.
Yeah, I just got because I wanted one to download on my computer so I could use like an annotation thing.
Oh, smart.
Because it's very. It's very weird to read.
It is very weird to read.
I think what he's doing is he's basically writing it as like a literary junk space itself.
Yeah, I really like it.
And so it embodies kind of that just the just expanding nature of junk space where it just goes from one thing to the next, just building constantly, always expanding, always adding.
You know what?
Reimagining, reinventing, reconsidering. It's just like this is always just. It feels very chaotic reading it.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to kind of like. I had to read through it a couple times.
Even then, it's kind of so dense that it's almost like we oughta. I almost want to go over it like slowly, bit by bit, maybe over a couple. Maybe not consecutive episodes, or maybe yes, consecutive episodes. I don't know, but like, it's just
It's
We could like talk for a long time about some like various ideas that are all. I mean, it's a really long essay.
oh yeah, it's like 16 pages.
Yeah.
So it's OBS. Okay. I just want to be able to see levels. Nobody's listening. But yeah, I took notes. I mean, in a way, a lot of my notes was mostly like underlining bits I really liked. But on the version I had, I really liked at the top he put a little quote that wasn't on the one that you initially sent me. It says Logan Airport, a world-class upgrade for the 21st century. And then it's attributed to late 20th century billboard. that's, that's so good. And at first I thought, it's like, is it talking about airport in Logan, Utah? Because there is one,
Yeah.
but it's more likely the Boston Logan or airport.
Should I send this to my family? I don't think they'd care. They were like curious about it.
It's like, I mean, you could be like, it's gonna be talking about something kind of obscure, because it's like really hard to, like, I don't know how to totally explain it. I mean, I have some notes. I kind of, it did help to take notes while going through it a second time.
I wanted to print it and like go through it
I
because
that
yeah, I
I
took.
like halfway through, I was like, I should have printed this out, but um, because even though he's like almost like redefines junk space like a million times.
He like starts to like branch out. He'd be like the part where he's like, "This is like globalization makes language junk space."
Yeah,
Like he started, and that's like pretty late on after he's already branched out a whole bunch. That's just the one
yeah,
that's like fresh in my mind.
yeah. I mean, it's almost him. Yeah, what's like the first one of, because in a way it's basic. You could almost boil it down to just his initial thesis,
Yeah,
where he's just, we've condemned ourselves to a lifelong immersion in the arbitrary, and then he basically goes on to explain that that's essentially what junk space is, and then he just goes on to use junk space language to demonstrate junk space and give all the examples of what it is. Because when I first read it, it was like, it was interesting, but at the same time, like the way it was written was like bugging me. But then, like reading through it again, it's like, oh, it's sort of almost like an ironic
yeah.
humor thing almost. The with like the way he structures it, because it's like a lot of like almost, like I'd say like overly verboseness in a way. Like there's a lot of like just like quippy thing after quippy thing when it doesn't really need to. He could be a lot more to the point,
Yeah, it's like
but the point is to make it into that thing where you're like feeling it, where you're just like, what am I reading? Like
it well
like you're getting bits of like, oh, okay, and then it'll like get into parts where you're like, what? I,
it muddles together the like he's talking to well he doesn't talk about it but like the images he conjures up of like like a mall shop front
mm-hmm.
where it's just like thing after thing after thing and it's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing. He doesn't use a lot of examples. So it's like, like the when he talks about the mall
He
shop front, he doesn't talk about a mall
he
shop front.
he
I thought about the mall shop front a lot.
yeah.
He
I mean, he talks about things where it kind of implies it, but you kind of think of I thought of lots of things. Um Still nobody. Um, or was I? Because he like brings up lots of different things. Like he kind of shifts the feel of it that kind of makes you think of different things, but I started to think of all sorts of additional things because he wrote this in what, like 2001, 2002, like 20 years ago. Hmm. Something I thought of is definitely like a modern, a contemporary example of this is like all the AI stuff. That was
Mm-hmm.
something I was thinking about because I've messed around so much with like the image generation stuff. I don't. It was just like there is something where you're like this. There's something empty feeling about it. It could make something that looks like a really cool image or painting or whatever, but there's something like off because it's just like an amalgamation of parts, really.
Yeah, hey, pour that out before it's too strong there. Or take the thing out.
Interesting with this tea because it's like two different types of tea together. It kind of changes over time.
Hmm.
Like it starts out as a matcha and then it just turns into a green tea.
I I really like I've never bought any of like the rice, the toasted rice stuff, but I always really like it whenever I have it. Usually. Um well, this has already been going for a little while, right?
Yeah.
But if anyone was ever to listen to this, a quick introduction, even though we could honestly probably
Here,
just
hold on, let me. I should just make this. Where do I do that? Where do I change it?
oh, I already really like how that smells.
Where do I change the publicity? Ah, maybe we'll get random people.
Hmm, be interesting.
Since last
Um
time it was unlisted the whole time by accident. But yeah,
Wait, real
well,
quick, just as like an introduction, just want to just as to be official,
mm-hmm.
as if we had a listener, as if somebody were to listen to this at some point in time.
Yep.
Do you want to talk about it or shall I?
Well, you're already talking.
Okay. Junkspace is an essay by Rem Koolhaas.
Or Haas.
Koolhaas. I like
Actually,
Koolhaas. I like
cool.
Koolhaas because he's an architect,
Yeah.
and I think it's a pretty cool name for an architect. um, and yeah, he's just a famous architect, and he's discussing junk space.
Which is him almost talking about how he thinks architecture is dead.
Yeah, yeah. He more or less doesn't think we have architecture now.
Yeah.
He thinks we have kind of like endless. I mean, this is. I guess this is what we're going to talk about. Endless like his
just
trying
it
to even
just
think of his language, like thin boxes of shopping mallness. I don't know.
just well, I mean, that's the thing is that's why we want to talk about it because
Yeah.
it is not straightforward.
So
But
it's
it's basically how everything is just expanding components of things. That nothing is its own thing. Everything is just about efficiency. It's about expansion. It's just, but it's not actually anything. It's just junk that gets piled up.
yeah. So it's a fun essay. It's a really cool essay. It's sort of strange. It's a very strange essay. He's writing in a weird way on purpose. Um, that's half the fun. Actually, I actually really like it. I wish more people would do stuff like this and kind of like break out of the mold a little bit. But um, we'll kind of get into the nitty gritty or the how would you say, like the deeper level of what he's saying. But
As
oh,
much as we can. There's a lot.
hi, is that Madeline?
Yep.
So I see.
It's
Hi,
mad.
Madeline. But but on the surface, what he's like the kind of easy explanation surface level is he's talking about modern buildings. And when he says junk space, um, he's talking. You could imagine. I guess the quintessential sort of like basic examples would be a shopping mall or an airport.
Yeah.
Spaces that you kind of pass through that aren't really like meant for um like you could pass through them and hardly even remember like what you saw because that's like wasn't the point.
Well,
Uh,
it's like having all like it's a full space of things and points of interest, but none of it means anything. That you go through it and you just kind of you forget it.
yeah.
It's and it just is it's there to just be there almost. And it just always is added upon, you just have things. Yeah, that probably needs to get yeah, gets added upon. And he gets into that.
Yeah, I think it's going to take us a minute.
Well, it's long. It's a long
Yeah,
essay
it's going to take us a minute I think to like
because it's not. Again,
to
he's it's written in the form of being junk space.
it's
So when you read it, it's gonna feel weird. It's gonna feel disjointed, and it's gonna feel like things are being like he basically redefines junk space a million times. It all makes sense, but it's like very kind of haphazard feeling, like going into a mall and just when all the signage is kind of all over the place, you have things that don't fit together next to each other, right? It's just yeah, but he gives like why he thinks that that's the case. He has a whole section where he complains, I don't know if complain, but like rants against air conditioning,
oh yeah.
which was interesting to think about. But yeah, I don't know where to start except for that basically I know I mentioned it before we made it public, the stream public, but yeah, like at the beginning one of the first things he says is we have condemned Yeah, we have condemned ourselves to a lifelong immersion in the arbitrary, which is kind of where everything branches out from. And he kind of goes into what that arbitrariness is and how it affects things and how it affects kind of everything.
Yeah, he starts with architecture, and one would say, "Oh, this is an essay about architecture," but is it's a really long essay, and as it goes on, essentially, he's kind of saying everything in our culture is junk space.
Yeah.
Um,
It just he focuses on architecture because that's what he's an expert in.
yeah.
He's a pretty big time architect.
So it's funny now that we're sitting here talking about it. I've read this a bunch. I've read
I
it a couple times for this. I read it a few years ago a couple times,
mhm.
but and I kind of almost felt like I had a pretty good grip of it, but I'm having all sorts of trouble articulating anything about it. Real quick, let me explain what it conjures up immediately in my mind as an example. Let me paint a picture, which is the picture of a good old fashioned regular shopping mall. So, first off, you have the different storefronts, some of which have pillars. There are a lot of pillars in shopping malls, uh, and a lot of them are like Greek pillars. This is part of what he's talking about in this context. So somebody was like, I'm gonna like some of them, and they'll be right next to a not a Greek pillar.
Yeah.
And one pillar will look like a pillar from a dystopian novel, and the next will be like a beautiful Greek pillar. But in this case, right, the beautiful Greek pillar becomes like this weird, meaningless thing. It's just another pillar. And you'll different storefronts. There'll be storefronts, you know, with each storefront, you're hit by like a brand new aesthetic.
Yeah.
Uh, because each is obviously a brand, and the brand has
It has its whole look,
it has
but
its
it doesn't make sense next to the other ones, and so they all become kind of like that Greek pillar where
yeah.
they all become garbage.
And he talks about somewhere in there how some or how a lot of these buildings employ domes. And the image we have up right now, this is the Provo Mall. This is what I thought of. I was like, oh, it has like this big old atrium. Oh, he talks about atriums a
Yeah.
lot. Atriums
That's the
is
kind of why, yeah, you think about
so here's like basically
malls.
a domey atrium, right? But it so my family and I we went and took pictures of the Utah State Capitol, which is like the opposite of what we were talking about last time, in that it's a very beautiful building.
Yeah.
Um, and they have a dome, like kind of like a classical, like you go into a not classical, but like you go into like a big old uh, cathedral, and there's the beautiful dome with all the detail, and you could like sit and look at it for a long time, and there's all sorts of stuff, and they have one of those with a painted mural across the whole dome,
Mm-hmm.
and you could really, if you wanted to, you could sit and stare up at it and get a lot out of it probably. It's
Mm-hmm.
just at a single glance, it's very lovely. And so, but he's saying that the domes in Junkspace, so the domes in like this mall it's a dome, right? It's like it's a piece of what's supposed to be a piece of like impressive architecture, but it
Yeah.
ends up being nothing at all.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't. I guess the only thing nice about it is it lets in sunlight, but uh, you go away and you immediately will never like care, or you'll forget that
It
it ever existed.
yeah, it's not an impressive thing.
Yeah.
Like it, you don't even notice it because it's just another element in just the pile of elements with the fake palm trees and the
Yeah, fake palm
pillars and
trees. Fake
the
palm.
weird clock and the escalators and all the different shops and the benches.
Oh, it's
Uh,
impossible to find anything in this huge essay.
that's why
We really
that's
needed.
why I had kind of marked stuff,
I know.
but it's still hard to find.
Because I wanted to find the place where he's trying to describe it, and he's like, well, it's junk space is like 5%
Oh
modern
yeah,
architecture, 5.
I'm looking at that
Okay,
right now.
do you want to read it exactly? Because I
It's
have no idea where
junk
it is.
space iconography is 13% Roman, 8% Bauhaus, and 7% Disney. 3% Art Nouveau, followed closely by Mayan.
But
So-
it's true, right? Because you can go into these places and there'll just be all of this stuff, and it becomes like this muddled nonsense
yeah.
that it doesn't have any.
Well, he brings that up a lot in a lot of ways. So another thing, I think it's near the top. Let me see where is that? Basically, he's like, I don't know if I'll find it. Uh, but essentially, like we create things that are the result of like impressive scientific achievement, and instead of doing that to create beautiful things, we just create things that are just amalgams of those achievements.
Mm,
And so you end up with things like, oh, well, we have this glass that we made, and then also this steel and these tiles and the carpet and the lights and it's there's no like consideration of like, okay, well, what things make the most sense together. It's like these are what we've decided are the best technically things, and we'll just pile them up and therefore it will be better. But instead it's like just disjointed and weird. See if I can find that, but yeah, junk space is the sum total of our current achievement. We have built more than all previous generations put together, but somehow we do not register on the same scales. So it's like we have all these things we've achieved, and it's like he's like, we don't
yeah, right.
we
But
have all this stuff we can do, and we haven't created anything like the pyramids.
yeah, that's what he says
So
right below it. Yeah, the
we have no pyramids to show for our achievement, sort of a thing.
yeah. Because if you think about it, um, yeah, just again, the mall is kind of the quintessential example in that a mall will be there for 20, 30 years, whatever, and then it becomes like this strange, derelict, scary place, and then eventually it goes away. And there's a lot of other buildings that get recycled even faster than malls, but mall kind of like embodies everything.
Yeah, but he brings up kind of airport stuff a lot too,
Yeah.
which is in a way an airport's not all that different from a mall, except instead of driving up to it, you fly to it.
Yeah, because he talks about how we interact with junk space, which is we just kind of like move through it. In the case of a mall, you're like there to buy stuff, and like the place is almost like
Transitory.
transitory. Because like yeah, like an airport, you just move through it and never give it a second thought, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there. I mean, yeah, in the case of those types of places, there's no. I mean, yeah, there's almost no destination. Like you'll go somewhere in there, but it's very just kind of open ended. Like the whole building really, like if you think about it, is like purposeless in its design. Which,
Yeah,
I mean, I guess that makes sense because the idea is that you have a bunch of shops in a mall.
yeah. I mean, it's a mall's kind of like
But that's kind of where he gets into the air conditioning thing. Because if you think about it, at some point, those would have all just been separate shops.
mm-hmm.
But now they're all basically separate shops that are in one building. Like when he's like, it's it's possible that all architects have unwittingly been working on the same building,
Yeah,
just because he's like, air conditioning has made it possible to create endless buildings
yeah,
of
and buildings that go on endlessly.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what it is, but one of the fun little quips he has in there is it's like where air conditioning meets escalators. That's
Oh
junk
yeah,
space.
yeah,
Yeah, where escalators and air conditioning meet.
yeah.
Aha,
Oh, it's Jason.
Jason.
Jason, we're drinking Yucati's tea right now. It's good. Mm.
Um, yeah. Again, I'm gonna complain about this 18 more times, which is just that there's so many. The essay's pretty dense, and so there's all these ideas. So I feel like we're just gonna kind of like bumble around from idea to idea. But
Yeah,
so he talks about how basically he's like it's not architecture, it's like a skin, which is kind of what we were just talking about. In that you've got in a mall all of these shops that may have used to either been elsewhere or like in like a outdoor market, whatever, like a bazaar. Anyway, but like it's just kind of got this frame stretched over it of um drywall and metal.
yeah. Well, he talks a lot about having like all the structure exposed.
Yeah,
How that,
which
which you could go back to our last discussion on the Provo City Hall, and from the back, you got a lot of that going on. There's a lot of like beams and lattices on the
and
backside.
and in modern architecture that's a thing in the 1950s ish because again the technology but the architects were like, "Hey, we're gonna like flaunt metal and steel or like glass and steel."
Yeah,
And there's like a purpose. And somewhere in this huge essay, he actually talks about that too, how it's like modern architecture, but it's lost its like it has no meaning anymore.
yeah.
Because like if I can't even remember.
Well, it's
Like there's some cool buildings built in modern architecture that are essentially like glass and steel, right? And they when you see them, they kind of look that way. You're like, "Oh, they look like they're flaunting their glass and steelness." Um But that's like the atrium of this mall isn't doing that. The atrium of this mall is just
it's
it's like skeletal.
it's just using that because
Yeah, because and it doesn't know
because it
why.
yeah.
That's a lot of what he talks about is
Well, that's he brings it up a lot, but I'm looking down at it. I have a thing underlined that just says junk space is a Bermuda Triangle of concepts.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that where it's just different concepts get pulled into it and then they just totally lose any significance or meaning because they just become subsumed into the junk space. Uh, but yeah, he has a number of good quips that are kind of in that line. Like, what's the other? There's another good one. Yeah, junk space thrives on design, but design dies in junk space.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, all the components are, designed and thought through, but then they all like it just dies a death because it's the context it ends up fitting in is this just piled up modular mess like a shopping mall or an airport or kind of a lot of things.
Yeah. Again, these are just the
The
shopping mall and the airport are kind of the easy to grasp,
but
like instantly apparent ones.
but I mean you can I mean this but it really easily applies to a lot more like a lot of office buildings kind of like that.
Yeah.
The those stupid apartment buildings very much.
Oh yeah.
I mean that's more just strictly in like an aesthetic architectural sense, less so in like the full encompassing everything is jumbled.
Jason, make your 3D gun. Go. Do it.
um
Although, if you listen to us while you make a 3D gun, you'll be inspired.
yeah.
We'll be like soft rock for your ears to,
Some spoken word.
yeah. Dude, speaking of spoken word in this, so um, the other funny thing is that uh, s- w- I don't like journal to keep, I don't like ever write down what happened to me during the day,
Yeah,
but I journal sometimes to sort out thoughts. And when I do, it comes out like this essay in that it's just like,
just almost stream of
yeah,
consciousness.
it's like stream of consciousness with only thinly related ideas. And I hate going back and reading it.
You're like, I don't know what.
'Cause, but that's just that's like in the moment it's very helpful to me. So
Yeah.
I kind of also like this essay in that sense because I'm like, oh, it's like how I write in my journal. It's how I. But yeah, when I go back and read the stuff I write, boy, it's obnoxious.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah, junk space is a black hole for meaning. Yeah,
Yeah,
and a lot of like going into almost how like it's so paradoxical. Where you have yeah, like we were talking about before, how there's like the in between space where you could pass through all this decoration and points of interest and come out of it not remembering any of it. Like one quote is, "It's flamboyant yet unmemorable."
yeah,
It's like, how is that possible? But somehow we've figured out how to do that. I don't know who that is.
oh, that's my mother. No, that's a really good point. Um, hi, mom. Um,
Well, I don't know.
money's a big issue in what we've been talking about because a lot of the ugliness of our culture is because people want to do things as cheaply as possible. However, when I was digging into classical architecture like months and months and months ago, there's a whole, I don't know what you, not a movement. It's not a movement. There's a whole group of people who have essentially like crunched all the numbers and again, I don't know what to, it's just like crunched all the numbers and they go around to like the different architectural firms or whatever, and their whole thing is that nice architecture doesn't cost anymore. Like it's not more expensive to make. It's just like a choice.
I mean, that's what I've thought. It's like at the very least you could make stuff look okay, you know? Because like when it comes down to it, it's like you don't have to use like marble. Like you could use something that is just looks nice, right? So much of design isn't so much using an expensive material, but just thoughtful consideration with the composition and thinking about how do things relate to each other instead of just like we'll put some fake palm trees in there and then some like Greek tile work or something and then like weird steel structures. So like that's my thing is does it have to be so haphazard and thoughtless?
And it's almost he talks about it through the essay almost like nobody has any control of it.
Yeah,
Um
it's just what happens.
and part of that uh that's I haven't given that a whole lot of thought, but oh my gosh. Um in the special case of a shopping mall, I think usually this is um or okay. So we've talked about how when people put up buildings like next to each other, we don't care in our current like culture here, like we don't care what building goes next to what building. Like it's not even like a consideration. Where
Yeah.
there are cities in Europe where they, I guess, get in like big fights about it because they're trying to maintain some sort of like they won't let you just like throw a skyscraper up next to like a beautiful old building.
Yeah.
And so there's an actual consideration of that. Whereas um here if I'm about to like say I put up an ugly apartment building and it's next to an office building and if someone were to randomly be like, "Hey, I'd rather you didn't put that there." You'd be like,
Too bad.
"Yeah, that's too bad. I own this land
Well,
and I'm going to develop it."
the best example in Provo is the new skin
Oh
building
my
just
gosh.
looming over the temple.
Yeah.
Which I mean, the new skin's been there longer than it's been the temple. So, but still, it was the tabernacle before, and it looked the same basically.
Yeah.
So it's like having the one of the nicer looking buildings in Provo, just having the one of the uglier ones just there,
Yeah.
and nobody could do anything about that.
Yeah, maybe it bothered somebody, but yeah, nobody could do anything about it
Yeah,
because the whoever has that land says, "Tough, I'm developing it."
yeah. I'm gonna put this whole weird campus right here with weird egg airfoil building next to it.
And so with a mall, the image that is conjured up for me is as you go from in kind of the same way you put all the different stores have different brands, and in a way it's kind of fun. It's like a market in that
Yeah.
they're all unique and different. It's not all bad. Um,
Yeah.
but it does kind of add to this weird amalgamation of like he in this one part of the essay he's like you go to like the bathrooms blend into the Disney store, blend into a massage parlor, blend into the next thing.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess part of what the thing is
Well,
it all becomes like a muddled mess. But and this is just shopping mall.
yeah. But I mean, he talks about junk space as, yeah, as something that almost just happens. But he starts the essay basically talking about how junk space is the end result of basically, it's like the logical conclusion of the aesthetic that our society would reach. Yeah, modernization is has a rational program to share the blessings of science universally. Junk space is its apotheosis or meltdown. And he just goes on talking about that, where it's like almost just our mindset within our culture just is going to result in this,
Well,
because
right,
it's just not like,
right below it. So or not too far below that, or right below it. Yep. Although its individual parts are the outcome of brilliant inventions, lucidly planned by human intelligence. So you take this small atrium, right? Like all sorts of parts of this are like in its own, it's actually a technological marvel. There's all sorts of, you know, our strong light steel
the
that
even
are
like the glass, to
yeah.
get it, like the panes of glass big enough and flat enough for that. Like even the paint on the beams, everything in there is like, are all material science wonders.
And then it comes together in like this meaningless.
Yeah, because it's almost being approached as like just just oh, this is the best thing. So if we put all the best things together, it will make the best thing. But in, yeah, it's almost like if you've played WoW or something, sometimes you wear all the best gear you have and it looks really ugly. Like for some reason, like the best pants you have are like short shorts, and then you have like a big like breastplate on. You know, like it looks really stupid, but it's the best you have. You know, but ultimately, it's just, I think, again, it's, you have to read the essay to
Oh,
really get a hold of it, because I'm not about to like go line by line on it because it'd
well, we
take
almost.
forever.
That's what I was saying. We almost should. I feel like I'm just bungling from idea to idea because there's so much, and I'm just like, well, here's an idea, and then
Yeah,
here's an idea. Yeah, I feel like I'm just bumbling around this essay haphazardly, but we should almost just go through it
just
line by
take
line
take a while.
over the course of
Who knows how long?
yeah,
It's like 16, 17 pages.
yeah.
Mm.
And that's the problem is he wrote this again, it's like nonstop zingers because partially because I think he was or Philip had the idea that he's kind of trying to embody the the junk spaciness a little bit, which is fun.
What's
Because it's just like it's like a stream of consciousness, weirdly written essay.
yeah, just
But he just like zingers after zingers, and you just want to stop at every single one and talk about it. Like,
yeah.
he says, architecture disappeared in the 20th century. We have been reading the footnote under a microscope, hoping it would turn into a novel.
Yeah, no, I love that
I
one.
know.
Yeah, also junk space seems an aberration, but it is the essence, the main thing. Like it's that's what I was saying. It almost feels like it's just the inevitable conclusion. It is the essence of
So the
when
core,
things are done.
yeah, the core of what we've talked about, um,
He talks about escalators a lot.
yeah, he talks about escalators. I'm gonna actually pause that thought and talk about, well, I don't know. I was gonna talk about how these are liminal spaces too, but essentially junk spaces if you just put people in liminal spaces, like put the people back in so they lose like their haunting nostalgia,
Yeah.
um, and then it becomes junk space again. Because this one's like that's a pretty good liminal space picture right there.
It is.
But the core of what we've kind of talked about, um, as we've been like, well, so we st- we started discussing with each other just why so many modern buildings being thrown up in Provo, Utah are so ugly. And we've talked about, um, I always had in mind money. That's obviously a thing. But uh, Philip brought up convenience, which is that idea kind of like rocked my world. I hadn't even thought of that. But then
Mm-hmm.
you start seeing it everywhere, how when things are made more and more and more convenient, it
Well, people will sacrifice a lot for just some convenience.
yeah.
Especially if it's something as like abstract as kind of the aesthetics of something. It's like, oh, well, I don't care too much that the place I live in is ugly because it's convenient. Stuff like that.
And just like that, I forgot what I was gonna tie it back to. But at the heart of it, it's because the complaint for me, I think, would be that it's ugly. Junk space is ugly.
It's just, yeah, it's just ugly.
It is. It's ugly,
Well,
and like it's you kind of just pass through it without giving it a second thought, and you don't want to be too much of a party pooper and be like, "Well, I go to the mall and my soul dies a little." Like I don't know, you go to the mall and you want to go to Bed Bath and Beyond, and it's fun, and like you get
yeah,
the thing and you leave. But
yeah. Well, I mean, it's ugly. For me, the ugly part is definitely that, but it's almost like the reason it's ugly is because it's just thoughtless. But lots of effort was put into it. I think for me, that's what kind of irks me
mm,
is when I see stuff like this. I'm like, a lot of money, a lot of time and effort was put into putting this together, and somehow, like, it feels like nobody thought about it. It's like kind of mind boggling to me when I see, like, even in this image where it's like you have that one column is vaguely Greek, and then
yeah,
the other one's just like this, just tube. Like, why aren't they the same? At least, you know, Like things like that. Like there was zero thought. So it's just I don't know. Again, malls are a little bit weird because it's essentially just what would normally be an outdoor marketplace or just like a series of stalls or small buildings just conglomerated into one building.
with
It's essentially an outdoor space, but why do they have to make that indoor but outdoor space like a mall? If that makes sense. Why
yeah.
why did they have to make it that way specifically? But yeah, just yeah, there's so many like quote
I
things here.
know, I know.
So like this one, at the exact moment that our culture has abandoned repetition and regularity as repressive, building materials have become more and more modular, unitary, and standardized. So it's like almost like doing the opposite of what it where
And so
it's like oh the standardization or I guess what is it the repetition and regularity like oh that's repressive how about we just make it super standardized it's like so you end up where it's like oh everything's done with like the same way everything looks kind of the same
yeah, and
and it's all modular it's like oh well everywhere uses these sort of like inset lights everywhere uses drywall and just like a white painted wall. Everywhere uses like basically the same tile. I mean, not always, but there's nothing like particular about the tile used in the mall. Like looking at this, it's just the floor, I guess.
that's kind of it, right? Though it's just the floor, I guess.
I mean, there's like kind of some kind of design going on, but here's the thing: is I've been in the Provo Mall a number of times. I know right where this is. I couldn't tell you what the tile design is. It's some kind of circular shape, I think, right here. But I don't know. I couldn't tell you because it's so like such a non thing. And that's kind of the problem. Like what again, somebody thought about doing that, but then they didn't think about it really because you're never gonna remember it.
No.
So it's like almost like well you may as well just had it all just be a uniform tile floor. It yeah, it's just
In
it's
the
nothing.
in the Utah State Capitol, in the big gorgeous open room on the second floor, the tiled pattern is a compass. I've only been there once. And I may not be like that may not be like quite right, but I'm pretty sure it's a compass because it was very lovely, right? So it stuck with me. Even though I wasn't even really paying attention. I didn't really stop. Kind of too busy looking up.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of pretty things on the walls, but the floor is intentional and it fits with everything and it's not just like this meaningless pattern that was thrown on the ground because I don't know. Nobody knew why the pattern was made in the Provo Mall. Nobody living. Whoever like commissioned that pattern or whatever probably was like if you asked them they'd be like, "What?"
Yeah.
Maybe or maybe they'd be like, "Oh yes, I thought long and hard about the pattern on the floor of the Provo
Oh,
Mall."
I guarantee you they'd be like, I don't remember.
Yeah, they'd be like, "I there was a catalog of tile patterns and I picked that one."
Or it's like it was just a shape that somebody drew in CAD,
Yeah.
and we're like, oh, okay, that's good.
So, uh repetition and what was it, whatever the other R word was, I think.
Um, regularity.
Yeah, so what he's talking about, or at least in some, I think what what that triggered for me, he's talking about classical architecture. In another section, he talks about hierarchy. Those are kind of like the rules.
Oh
So
yeah, I had that one
yeah,
marked.
so in this can kind of we can talk about houses for a second because that's
Hmm.
but it doesn't have to be houses. But in a classical architecture building, it's very formal. So if you see there's windows, all the windows would be the same size on the same level. Um,
And they're
and
like
they'd
proportional to like the
yeah,
door and
proportional to the windows above them.
yep.
Like, and it's hierarchy. So the windows on the bottom level usually might be like a little more ornate, and then as the levels go up, like maybe a little less so. So maybe
Yeah.
you might get like windows of different sizes, but they'd all be uniform to each other, or like look like they fit together.
Yeah.
And so that kind of all got thrown out the window in the middle of, again, in like the 1950s, basically the whole 20th century. They were like, that's what I think he's talking about a little bit there, because basically everyone was like trying to buck the,
Yeah.
was trying to
I
get rid
mean,
of that. And you get some cool examples, but
well, he's basically because he's not like saying that that stuff's bad. I think more what he's saying is getting to the point where you're you have an architectural style that's actually just meaninglessly like plucking stuff from those.
yeah. Well, I think he likes it. I think he likes um the classical architecture stuff. But
Well,
uh
yeah.
but yeah, I was thinking of like McMansions, which is something we
Yeah.
should do, where it's actually like a good example of what we're talking about. So there'll just the really bad McMansions just have windows of all shapes and sizes everywhere, and you can tell they're just like, "Oh, that's a cool window." Like,
And they'll have all different types of siding. They'll have a part
yeah,
that's like a vinyl siding, and then some stucco, and then like some just rustic stone, some brick. And then they'll have like their roof will be like the the tile.
yeah,
It'll be like the red tile, and you're like, this makes no sense.
and it's because it's plucked out of, like you said, you pluck all these like historical ideas because each one in their own context is usually cool, right?
Yeah,
You're like, oh yeah, this like Victorian turret. Victorian turrets are pretty cool on Victorian houses. Like they really are.
yeah,
They look awesome. But they'll like slap that on like a house, and then like you said, there'll be some like Spanish tile and windows of all shapes and sizes all over that turret, and then who knows. And so it's like you said, modular, because somebody was like, wow, you can have this cool big circular window.
yeah,
That's one of the things we offer when we build
yeah,
a house.
yeah.
And we'll put it like looming above your doorway.
Hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And it's like divorced from its
It yeah, it's not connected into anything. And so it makes it so that everything else around it doesn't make any sense either. So you just have like a pile of things that just they're meaningless together.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Is the like the I mean, in a way, the McMansion thing and the really ugly apartments and townhouses and condos are just ones like the high density version of a McMansion, like
Yeah.
ugliness. They're almost like a little bit less offensive to look at than a McMansion just because it's a large thing that is somewhat consistent, but still stupid because you're looks stupid. It's a stupid Minecraft building,
Yeah.
which
Whereas,
is fundamentally modular.
yeah.
And
Oh, they're totally modular, right? That
yeah,
is interesting. I hadn't
uh,
even thought of that.
Minecraft is all about being modular. It's like modularity of the game.
Yeah, whereas a lot of McMansions are like architectural history sneezed on a house.
Yeah, I don't know what the process.
Uh,
Somebody spends a lot of money to have somebody make a really ugly building.
yeah, we'll have to do. We should do McMansions, even though McMansions have already been very done. In fact, we should just go through McMansion hell. The the blog because it's fun.
That could be fun.
Um,
Oh, um, this is some one of the things really liked when I read this. This is very much a jump from McMansions, but when he talks about seating, everywhere in Junkspace there are seating arrangements, ranges of modular chairs, even couches, as if the experience of Junkspace offers is its consumers is significantly more exhausting than any previous spatial sensation. Which it's like I read that and it's like, oh man, there are like seating, like you go to the mall, there's like benches everywhere. You like the other day I went into the pig company building over by Smith's. It's just an office building, but it definitely is junk spacey. But yeah, like you go inside, there's a bunch of seating like in there. And I was thinking, I was like, how often do people even actually sit in these? Why are they here?
and
I
when
like I sat in one of like these chairs in a corner. I was like, I may be the first person to ever sit in this chair because I don't know why anybody would. Like people aren't waiting in the lobby in that building. They're just going in and going right into their job doing who knows what. I don't know, answering phones or something or emails. But yeah, where it's just like you have that for whatever reason. I just thought it was like a funny little statement, but in a way, there's almost something to it. Also, it connects into my whole thing with like these like stupid parks, particularly the one by the new courthouse.
oh yeah,
I have a lot to say about that, and it's actually
is
like
that is that even a,
it's like junk space the park.
is it even a park?
I don't know. I'm
It's
actually not sure if it's actually a park.
it's like nothing,
Have you
which is why it's
I've
junk
gone and
space.
like wandered
No, I
around it.
haven't.
I've gone and sat down on the benches and I, I think they're supposed to be benches. They look like they're supposed to be. They're not in a spot that makes sense as a bench. But if you go in there and actually like try and use it as a park, you'll be baffled. It makes no sense. Uh, it's like really weird. And it makes you think like, is this a park? What is this? Like, how are you supposed to experience this space? Because going into it like it's a park, because it has paths, it has benches, but you go into there and try and treat it like a park, and it feels so uncanny and weird. Like you don't belong there because it's designed in a way where it doesn't make any sense. It's like inhuman. And so, like, my theory, my most charitable understanding of it is that it's meant to be looked at from up in the courthouse. I guess.
And you're like,
I don't
ah,
know.
what a wonderful nature reserve in this building I work in down
Just
there.
down there, not by me at all.
Yeah, I
And
don't know.
the thing is, even then, you like look down at it. Most of what you're gonna see is just like stripes of gravel. So I don't know.
I mean,
It's really weird.
it's like it's a tiny little thing too. It's like the ghost of an effort of a park.
Yeah, I don't.
It's like the dying gasp of a park. I don't know what it is.
Except it's new.
Yeah.
It's. I still think I might be one of the few people, maybe even the only person, who's gone into that park and sat at a bench. And I did it just to do it because I'd been looking at that park for like a while and just been like totally confused by it. And
Um,
I'll say going into it and actually trying to use it did not make it make any more sense. It made it like more confusing.
what is the thing he says in the essay that Junkspace is best enjoyed? Something. Uh, I
Oh,
can't
I don't.
remember, but somebody else's words from a video I watched that somebody made on Junkspace. They're like 3 on YouTube, so you
There's
you
only.
can consume all of the.
I'll have to go find them. I
Yeah.
thought about looking up
So
something
this
like.
one's just a short one where this lady has like a 360 video and she's just kind of discussing the essay
Mhm.
like it's like 6 minutes long or something.
Mhm.
But she was talking about um how somebody I think it was the city of Paris. It's been a while since I watched this. Uh, put out like a tourist pamphlet where they were like, "Hey, the best way to enjoy the city is to like drift through it.
Mhm.
Like you kind of just get off like the beaten tourist path and kind of like drift through the city, I guess."
Yeah.
So somebody put that out, and she was like, "It's a great idea. Try it in junk space sometime. Like, like drift through an airport." Which is weird because he says something similar because I remember like something kind of vaguely like that. He says the best way to to enjoy junk space is something, and it was kind of like that where you're like not using it for its intended purpose,
Mhm.
but you're kind
No,
of like
I don't remember
I can't remember
exactly.
where it is.
I don't know.
I'm not
It's
even
so
trying to
long.
find anything in this essay because
I have it up and I'm just looking through it because I actually like underlined and highlighted things, and so I'll look at some of that.
so there
And
you go.
so,
You drifted
but
through.
I don't know if I marked that
You
spot.
let
So,
yourself drift in that garden. So you got to kind of like
but it was like not enjoyable.
yeah.
It
Well, I
was just
don't.
it was like confusing and uncomfortable.
Well, when she said that in the video, I thought of one time we had a late night flight and we are sitting in the airport and
Mhm.
my baby was being super fussy, so I just carried her around the airport and just kind of like wandered slowly through the airport. And it is like suddenly you get to see the airport as opposed to how you normally use it, which is you're kind of like
Just
speed walking through it.
yeah,
And so, although it wasn't much of like a profound experience, it's just sort of
you can take it in a little bit.
yeah, you take it in a little bit. It's a little ugly. That's all. That's really the.
Mhm.
But it made me think of that as I was just kind of like I was meandering slowly through the airport, just like carrying this fussy baby.
Mhm.
But yeah, to like if you were to like go like meander slowly through the mall just to do that with that, because I mean people do that, but they're also they're not like probably thinking about it the same way.
I mean, I've done that at the Provo Mall actually. When I've gone to like Home Depot or something, I've I've actually just gone there and been like, I haven't been here in months, maybe even years, and just I wonder what's going on. Just wandering around and be like, why are there like six like nerd fantasy stores here? It's like kind of crazy.
The
I don't know how they coexist in that space at that. That
without
was like a weird discovery. Where like there's like six stores in here that are basically Dragon's Keep.
Yeah.
And you're like, how?
Without going on, or we
But
could go on this tangent. Um, the fact that the Provo Mall is like a pretty dying mall, and so it has a lot of weird stores because I think they're just letting anyone who will pay them.
I guess I
The,
don't know.
yeah, it's not like this. It isn't chock full of the big like global brand names. It has
Yeah,
like strange,
yeah. There's a lot of
like
weird things in there.
they're like weird local things, but they're not like, how would you say, they're not like uh normal local things. They're like weird local things. Like again, like a whole bunch of stores where you can probably buy a chainmail bikini if you really want.
Yeah, there's a whole art stall like right by. It's actually right by where this image is, where you can just buy like paintings of dragons. It's like literally they have like hundreds of paintings of dragons and I think other like fantasy things. And you're like, okay,
Yeah.
that I guess that makes sense that's in a mall. But yeah, there's and then yeah, you have like the little like jewelry kiosk things in the middle of the halls, I guess. I don't know, does a mall really have halls? Corridors?
Corridors.
I don't alleys? However you would
Yeah.
describe that, but
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what any of these stores were. Um, because I just remember thinking, wow, what even is that and why is it here? I thought that a couple times. I'm trying to remember what any of them are. There's like a,
there's a Nerf custom Nerf gun production place.
yeah, and then there's like an art gallery that has never ever been opened. There's
Yeah,
two art galleries. There's one that's like more normal looking, and there's one that just says like whatever art gallery and it's never been opened.
yeah, yeah. Could go into
I know.
detail of some things there, because there's there's some weird thing. I still don't understand what it is. It almost looked like it was some kind of VR experience thing or
Oh
something in
yeah.
there that I saw it last time I was in there and I was like, I don't understand what this is. And I think they had a website and I went to the website and it's like this isn't helping me understand what this is. Uh what else? There's like a clothing shop in there that I've never seen it actually open. And they have their hours posted and I'll be there at like the hours when they should be open, they're just not. You're like, so it's like what's going on? I don't understand. There's so many like weird things. Laser assault's in there. Laser assault's been around a long time.
Oh yeah, there's like
It used to be by Smith's.
like a child sensory tumbling gym. That's been there a long time too,
Yeah,
for being kind of like a weird little
it's
thing.
like a very niche
Yeah.
little place.
Uh,
Maybe that's what the only things that work there.
I don't know.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah, I don't know how like far afield we want to get
Yeah,
because, but
remembering what's in there. There's the I think it's supposed to be like a pop up thing. There's that one where it's just like a little like altar. It's just with nothing in there. It's just like a stand.
is that the one that says it's like the art gallery?
I, I don't
No,
remember.
because the one
I
that has that says it's
It's
an art
like a
gallery.
little itty bitty front area of one of the things I think
Yeah.
that I don't under I've never understood what that was.
I really like dead malls though. They give me like the like satisfying liminal space nostalgic sadness. Especially this one is so good because it's doing the thing where
Well,
you could like stand on the second level and it's completely empty. I've like this has happened to me where I'm up there, there's nobody else in sight, and the weird like mall music is echoing hauntingly down the corridor, and it's just it's uh it gets me. I like liminal space stuff a lot though.
mhm.
It has its like it's my like ASMR thing.
Yeah.
Like it gets me pretty good. Especially all right, wait, quick story time. Since this is our podcast and fun stories, I guess. So, an interesting thing about my life when I was a little kid, my father did sand sculptures
Mhm.
in malls, which is a weird thing. I don't know how that came about, but it was a thing for a short time. And so they'd make gigantic sand sculptures in like the middle of malls, in the atriums probably.
What else are you gonna do with the atriums?
Yeah, you make like these ginormous sand sculptures. And so there was once or twice I think it was they were doing one in Colorado is I think where it was, and I flew out as an unaccompanied minor, but I was flown out to like spend some time with my dad, and they would do the work on it at night. So I don't think I was like allowed to roam too far in an empty
Mhm.
mall at night, but I was there, right? In an empty mall at night.
Yeah.
And so mall stuff like kind of gets me. I like mall stuff is
Just
like
a
the
core
haunting nostalgic.
core memory.
Yeah. Of
Just empty malls.
yeah, being in empty malls. So that's like the I'm kind of like a sucker for like dead mall stuff.
Yeah. Uh, I mean, when he wrote this essay, that's I don't think dead mall stuff was
No,
so much a thing
I don't
because
think it was.
it was at kind of a peak mall time.
It was probably right at the very top of the roller coaster.
Yep.
Because I think malls were pretty
Just
big through the like I don't know my mall history, but what late 80s all through the 90s,
and then early
early
2000s.
2000s, and then suddenly right internet kills everything.
Internet and 2008 just economic
Yeah,
stuff. Those two combined just
yeah, like
murdered
Amazon and
malls.
recession like together.
Yeah, just anyway. Yeah.
So um I don't know. There's other ways in which he uses junk space that are interesting.
Yeah, I mean he talks about entertainment, he talks about politics, he talks about language,
Yeah. I don't know.
economics.
I
He
don't know.
basically applies it to everything.
I don't know if he.
Kids' playgrounds.
Oh yeah, well, kids' playgrounds in the malls.
Yeah,
Those.
yeah.
I
That's
like how he's like kids don't want to play on those, and that's not really true. I think kids do want to play on those, but I get
yeah.
it. Like they're like they're like small and weird. um. Yeah, I don't know if he came up with the word. I feel like I've heard it used before, but not for a while. Corpotainment for
Oh
like,
yeah.
and I liked that because that it's a nice it's a nice word for what Disney is now.
Mhm.
Just since that's like a talking point, I guess, in modernity or not modernity, in just now is the question: will Disney
I
ever
mean,
make anything good again? Probably not.
They're just junk space now.
No, it's super junk space. It's a good way. This is like a good way to think about a lot of things.
Just everything, because
The,
he talks about how like things become that, because so much of it is just like it's about things getting added onto. He has where's I just was looking at it. Where he talks about, gosh dang it, yeah, where he talks about what I termed in my notes as limousinification, where he talks about anything stretched, limousines, body parts, planes, turns into junk space. Its original concept abused. Restore, rearrange, reassemble, revamp, renovate, revise, recover, redesign, return. The Pantheon marbles, redo, respect, rent. Verbs that start with re produce junk space.
reboot.
Yeah, so that's what I thought when I read that, as like reboots, reimaginings, just revisitings, anything like that. I was like, oh my gosh, and
Yeah,
it's
that's pretty.
confirming my hatred for live action remakes of Disney animated films. Like, I hate these. And you read stuff like this, it's like I am right to hate these.
Oh, I mean they're total like junk space.
Yeah, yeah. Right after that, he then says, "Junk space will be our tomb." So- but yeah, it's just, yeah, so many things in here. But yeah, the original concept abused. I underlined specifically in that.
The
It's
original
just
concept abused, which is like
it's just which that to me is like a big part of a lot of it, where it's just all these different components are some original concept within some context, and they're getting stretched in some way. Maybe not dimensionally, but in some way where they're getting like contorted from their original space. They just become junk. But yeah, that because as the singing, it's like, yeah, like the idea of like a, because yeah, he says like limousine, whereas the singing, it's like, yeah, it's like a car, but it's stretched. It does kind of make it like a weird thing in and of itself, and then just applying that to other things.
applying it to media just kind of blew my mind.
Or it's
Just
just,
because it's so obvious.
mm-hmm,
Well, as soon as you start talking about it, you're like, oh yeah, just a nice way of thinking about it.
mm-hmm,
Because
just, yeah. But also, yeah, he talks about, I don't remember where it is. I think I have a note, but where it's basically just, you just, it's just like adding stuff. He talks about that a lot. I think it's basically like you can, in architecture, it's like junk space is like a time lapse of yeah, architecture has turned into a time lapse sequence to reveal a permanent evolution. 'Cause he talks a lot about how it's just like kind of just stuff kind of gets like piled up, and so whatever was there before just kind of gets abandoned and like hidden behind whatever else is going on. Kind of like a billboard or something, where it's just you pile up layers and layers of giant posters. But And that junk space is expansion. That's another thing he goes into, which is connected into that. Another one I liked is junk space is post existential. It makes you
Mm-hmm.
uncertain where you are, obscures where you go, undoes where you were. Do you think who do you think you are? Who do you want to be? It's like makes everything unclear. Just yeah. Again, like with the mall, it's like you're in there and you're like, where was I going? Like you get distracted. You're like nothing's coherent. And then you start thinking, who am I? Yeah. Who yeah, where was I? Yeah, it's just like mhm. Yeah, maybe well, we've just been like all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, it's too hard not to, which is fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so
Because I liked the language thing a lot too.
many. Mm-hmm.
The globalization. Um, oh my
Where he
gosh.
says the I have I
I,
guess one where I didn't mark as much. Interesting.
globalization makes language junk space, and then he talks about the fact that
Yeah.
English is like the globalized language, and that it's basically like junk spacified English.
Yeah, no, yeah, he or it's just everybody just uses it to whatever everywhere uses it in whatever way. It just kind of becomes like the empty space in the mall between the shops. Gosh dang it. I had something. Yeah, the
What
ubiquity of English is Pyrrhic. Now that we all speak it, nobody remembers its use. It's such a good way of putting it.
which is funny because it's not something I've thought about. Um, we kind of have there's like talking points with language, which is like you're like, oh yeah, English, haha, it's hard to learn, right? I guess that's the only thing I can think of. Um, or how useful languages are.
Mm-hmm.
That's if you ever like end up talking about languages with people. Like I was actually just last night with some people, and the one guy knew like Slovakian and oh my gosh, what was the other? He knew three languages, none of which were useful in quotations.
Yeah.
And he was like, I kind of like that they're not useful. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to learn Spanish. Um, but, or, yeah, it's like if you talk about with someone about like French is not like it's like a useless language to know because it's only applicable in one little place on earth.
Oh, there's quite a few places that speak French.
Yeah,
They're mostly in Africa.
I would say it's not a terribly useful thing, I think, to know French. But I guess what I was getting at is there's like maybe that's just like the way people always talk about language.
Yeah, is how useful is it?
I hadn't really thought about but like in France, I don't know. You always hear that they're very fussy about maintaining French.
Mm-hmm.
That they're trying not to let it get like um I don't know what the word would be, Englishified, I suppose,
Yeah.
where like
Well,
half
that
of half of our words are Latin and half of our words are like
Germanic.
Germanic, but
Yeah.
the French. I mean I don't know how true this is. I just have heard this, but
I
it's
know I
it's a,
know for sure in Spanish there's like an official like Academy of Spanish in Spain. And I think French has that
I
too,
think so.
where they curate very specifically how the language officially is supposed to work.
Yeah. And if a word comes in from the outside, they translate it and they make up a new word
Interesting.
so that you don't have.
Because in English, it's like, well, we'll just use that word, I guess. We'll just use straight up, just use the French word.
Yeah. And actually, I mean, this is I'm going far afield, but I guess this is what we can. It's just interesting because I hadn't thought of language,
Mm-hmm.
maybe um in any of these ways. I once read an Orwell essay, and part of that, I'm trying to remember what the point of the essay was. He was like, stop using dead metaphors, make up your own, which is pretty fun. It's like a fun exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're like, hold your horses, and you're like, why did I say that? Like
Yeah.
I don't hold any horses.
Yeah.
Horses don't need to be held by anybody. Like think of a new way to say that.
Yeah.
Um, but in part of it, he was talking about he's like, stop like importing like Latin and
Mm-hmm.
using it for stuff. He's like, use English words. See if you can use English words for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Which like sounds kind of fuddy duddy,
Yeah.
but just talking about this in this respect, it's kind of like, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
like not taking the the Roman pillar and like slapping it in somewhere where it's meaningless.
Yeah. Because I mean, there's a lot of like little Latin, and it could be for a lot of languages, but Latin's a common one where there'll be like just will phrase things that's like, do you need to use it that way?
Yeah.
Does it have to be Latin? But it just is. And I think a lot of people probably hear things like that. They hear the Latin and they're like, either are like straight up just that was meaningless to me,
Mhm.
like they actually didn't understand what was meant, or they're like, oh, I know what that means, and they could just describe it as, oh, that means like, oh, I'll do that for free or something.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that means, oh, that's how you do something, or that's how somebody acts. You know, I don't know. Is there actually a reason to do it?
Yeah. It's
Perhaps not.
I've never given this a
But
thought before in my life. Before now, it's just kind of like an interesting thing to mull over. I probably won't be too fussy about language.
no. Yeah, the
Although, again, that's like one of those things that now that somebody points it out, it makes you like a teeny bit sad, even though it's probably not that bad. But to be like, oh, the language I speak is like the like global junk space language.
mhm. Yeah, no, it's weird. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, it kind of applies to everything though, so you can't escape it.
Yeah. No, saying we live in like a junk space culture is pretty apt,
Hmm.
pretty pretty like a good way, like I said, a good way of thinking about basically everything we've been talking about.
Hmm.
Which is funny because when I thought, oh, we should read this essay, I didn't think about it that way. I was just like, oh, yeah, it's about architecture and how some architecture's ugly.
And it's actually about uh, just yeah, it's not just about architecture. It's about kind of this cultural mindset and the the result of that. And then I just found the corpotainment bit.
Yeah, corpotainment.
Corpotainment is a galaxy in contraction. forced to go through the motions by ruthless Copernican laws. The secret of corporate aesthetics was the power of elimination, the celebration of the efficient, the eradication of excess, abstraction as camouflage, the search for a corporate sublime. So it's just, in a way, it's sort of the things get bland in Disney stuff because they just redo things and they try and just be kind of safe, or
Yeah.
it's oh we'll do like nothing stuff and just put some arbitrary decoration on top to cover up the fact that we didn't bother to make anything meaningful.
I have heard,
But yeah,
not that I'm way too cool to talk about Disney stuff. But you could tell that the new thing that came out was going to be just dreadful. But I've heard that it is like the newest anime thing is like peak like nothingness. It's just like a bland, safe, like it
yeah,
feels like it's like the to
it,
use
it's like it's a new thing, but actually it's just
yeah,
nothing.
it's just absolutely a nothing movie.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, I've
I I didn't. Yeah, I haven't had any interest to see it.
I was
But
telling uh I was telling my wife that although I'm too hipster for everything, late night when I was working on an art thing, uh I'm like not immune to the what's the Ratatouille quote? I'm not immune to negative criticism is fun to read and write.
mm-hmm.
And like some videos popped up that were like new Disney movie sucks and I was like can't not watch those. That's that's I think
I don't even know if I've done that. It's just
well cuz
I
I
don't
wasn't
know.
even going to give it a second thought, right? Like I'm saying I'm too cool for that.
Yeah.
But dude, I like find the most I guess this wasn't weird, but I go down like different rabbit holes late at night on YouTube
Mm-hmm.
while I work. I think I've talked about that. Like the other day, I just watched like cocktail making videos.
Oh yeah, no, I've had.
I don't drink cocktails ever.
But it's still
It
interesting.
is very interesting and super satisfying to watch. Like like they're super pretty.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I feel like I feel like Disney's hit sort of like the it's like now like the definition of what you just read.
Yeah, it's just corpotainment,
Corpotainment.
as we have said.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's kind of. I mean, we've talked about it before. This is less this essay thing, but sort of like when you try and make stuff that's just a broad net mass appeal thing, you end up
Yeah.
just the only option you end up with to even attempt that is just some kind of common denominator thing. It's just a lowering of depth, a shallowing
Mhm.
of things. So it's like, oh, well, we want to make an animated film that will appeal to everybody, and what you end up creating is possibly something that doesn't appeal to very many people. Because is it possible to make something that everybody likes? It's possible to make something that a lot of people like, maybe even that most people like, but everybody is impossible.
Let me see if I've got anything in my notes. Oh, the hot tub quote.
Oh, I don't.
I don't.
I can't remember if I marked that one, but I remember. I think I read
How
that
junk
today.
space is like being in a jacuzzi with 10,000 of your friends or something like that.
Yeah.
I I don't even remember what he meant. I just had hot tub written in big words
Yeah.
because it's a funny quote.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, where is it? It's kind of. See, I don't have anything marked, so I'm absolutely. I haven't even been looking at the essay because
Because yours is just
mine. I need to go through it now.
no. Taking notes and marking stuff was pretty helpful. Just to, because when you have to read the essay more than once
Mm-hmm.
to really
There it
start to
is.
get something out of it.
Wait. Nope, that's
Because
not it.
the first time I read it, I was honestly kind of lost. Like I was getting bits where I was like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
I am liking it, but I'm also not sure where I'm at or where it's going." Yeah, I don't remember where the jacuzzi quote is. I remember it though,
Yeah.
because I didn't just underline stuff I liked. It's mostly I was trying to get like find like core things, and that was one I think I kind of
It's just a funny quote.
it
It's
was
not.
funny, but I was like I actually didn't quite get what he's
I
getting
didn't
at.
either. Oh, there it is. Okay. Let me start like a little before to see if we can kind of.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll start just a bit before. More and more, more is more. More is more. Junk space is overripe and undernourished at the same time. Okay, we can get that. A colossal security blanket that covers the earth in a stranglehold of seduction. Seduction. Junk space is like being condemned to a perpetual jacuzzi with a million of your best friends. A fuzzy empire of blur. It fuses high and low. Okay. So I get it, I think. It's just condemned to a perpetual jacuzzi with a million of your best friends.
uh,
It just the imagery that conjures up is just it's like he
well,
says before or like a line before it's overripe. It's a very like hot, uncomfortable sounding thing to be in a jacuzzi
yeah.
with a
Well,
million of your best friends.
it's like turning something that should be pleasant into a hell
Yeah.
almost. The
Um
junk space is beyond measure, beyond code, because it cannot be grasped. Junk space cannot be remembered. It is flamboyant yet unmemorable, like a screensaver.
Oh yeah, I loved the screensaver because that immediately that's good imagery. You're like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you see a screensaver, you're kind of like, for a second, it kind of rocks.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe that. You're like,
And
aha, a screensaver. Wow.
and
That's
then
all.
and then when it's gone, you don't care.
Although I feel like there's there's much like less of that in the architecture. I feel like there's not very many architectural moments in junk space stuff where I'm like, oh wow, haha.
Not in a mall.
Not in them all. If I guess if you were paying attention, you'd probably be like, oh, that's a weird like decoration because there are.
Yeah.
There are always he somewhere in here. I think he remembered he talks about it. Maybe it was in the hierarchy thing. I can't remember because it's. I think I'm getting my sections mixed up. But there's one where he talks about decoration, how decoration um how there's just decoration like in every corner, in every like random corner, something like that. I might,
I might be looking at that
I
part.
don't
Hold
know.
on.
Oh wait, Crab on LSD, also funny one.
Yes.
That one is actually that's pretty. Again, these are just zingers. I just wrote down zingers. Those are my notes. But
Yeah.
the culture that wobbles endlessly sideways.
Mm-hmm. Like a crab
Yeah,
on LSD.
crap on LSD.
Yeah.
But that I mean that too. It's just a good way to explain it because you're not making pyramids. Like your culture's not attaining to like greatness.
It's just moving sideways.
Yeah, it's just building like really really long malls.
Yeah. That are going to be demolished in like 30 years.
Yeah.
And nobody will care.
Yeah, nobody. In fact, it's then the new thing is that I mean that basically just happened in my hometown of Cache Valley as a whole like bunch of they weren't strip malls. Um, a whole like commercial area just got redone,
Mm-hmm.
and they were all and so some people some people in my family were talking about all the neat new stuff they'd put up, but it's just kind of like it's like he talks about in here like the you tear down junk space, you put up more junk space. Like it's just,
Yeah. It's just,
it's like the, oh boy, that Albertsons got torn down and now there's like a, a Chick-fil-A and a Starbucks, oh boy, right?
yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's just, it doesn't end. Again, it's where everything just goes. Oh, yeah. Just junk space does not pretend to create perfection, only interest.
Mm.
Yeah, I think the section after that talks about maybe the decoration thing.
I'm
I don't
trying
know.
to remember because I
But
feel
yeah,
like,
I have it that part highlighted, but I don't know.
yeah, I'm trying to remember where on earth that was because I kind of think I think I mishmashed a few ideas together, even though a lot of these things
That's
in
kind
this,
of the how this
yeah,
essays. I mean, you look at it, there's no paragraph. It's like the whole essay is a paragraph. It's a 17-page long paragraph.
it's essentially a 17-page long run-on sentence. It
Just about.
Yeah, it's like not, but
Also,
that's like the idea he's getting
it
across.
also ends on an ellipses. So it could keep going.
Mm.
But
This has been really good though because like I said, I felt like I had a pretty good idea of it, but the idea I don't know, the fact that it's like applicable to everything in the vein we've been talking about
mm-hmm,
somehow hadn't quite like occurred to me.
mm-hmm,
I feel like I am armed with something to explain myself a little better.
mm-hmm. What, I don't remember what it's. Where is it?
The decoration thing?
No, it was something.
So I think I'm out of. I've got other ones, but they're less interesting.
There's a quote that I really liked where I can't remember what he was talking about. I just underlined it and I was thinking about it. Come on.
You can think about that. Uh, I got the one where he talks about how the whole junk space can be unstuck by nonconformity of one of its members. When he's talking about like how how you act in junk space This was supplemented a little by that video I was telling you about, because
Mm-hmm.
the the speaker in the video was talking about how it's odd because this is especially true for like an airport or like station of some sort. Like everyone's on their best like social behavior, but it's not like a social thing. Like nobody's like interacting, and
Yeah.
you barely want to make eye contact if you don't have to.
Yeah.
Uh, but everyone's like on their best behavior, and then she quotes the entire junk space can be kind of unstuck by the nonconformity of one of its members. Like if somebody like steps out of line, I don't even know if I've seen anyone step out of line in like an airport, but you can just, or you could think of, I don't know, when the other day I went shopping and there was like a hobo just like wandering the aisles.
Mm-hmm. I'm a hobo that wanders the aisles sometimes.
You're less than this. This guy was like full on,
You
like he was like
you could
wearing,
spot him as a hobo.
yeah, and he was like an extreme hobo. Like he was wearing like a snowman suit that looked like he had like 6 layers of torn sweats like all on top of each other,
Mm-hmm.
and then he was just carrying like 1,000 bags,
Yeah.
you know. So, but yeah, it like breaks the spell.
Mm-hmm.
Besides the fact that like, yeah, you're just kind of like uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
but it like almost like breaks the spell of like takes you out of like the whole like everything.
Yeah. 'Cause
But you can imagine an airport maybe if someone was to like get really upset.
Mm-hmm.
That you like you could see that happening in an airport, like unstuck you from your.
Yeah. Just because even though it's not uniform, there's definitely like
When you go to a like a mall or an airport, you're there for like a very specific function and you like perform it more or less perfectly usually.
yeah, yeah, because it's like the actual space is just you're going in between. You're like not there to be
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, mall's a little more like loosey goosey. Like if some teenagers were driving the little animals down the thing, you wouldn't be like it wouldn't be a disaster. It'd be fun.
Yeah,
Or you know, like if stuff is going on at the mall's a little more like a little more fun energy. But yeah, if again if someone were to get like really upset at like a an airport, everyone around them would be sort of unhappy.
yeah, like takes over the space,
Yeah,
changes the focus.
like breaks the.
Well, it's almost like because it's so haphazard and nonsense, there's no like point of focus. So as soon as something happens or is put in place that disrupts that, there suddenly is a point of focus. Oh yeah, the thing I think is talking about essentially almost as like consumerism. This is I have underlined because it's like how you like leave a trace through your transactions. It says
Oh,
they know everything about you except who you are.
yeah.
It's like you're going through this space as like you aren't a person in that space. You're just like information about a person in that space.
In that same yeah, in that same section or like in the vicinity of that, it talks about how working from home like it brings junk space to your house, which made me sad. Um and again, he's talking from like yeah, like the year 2000 or whatever, and he's like, if you, suddenly next to the Bible on your desk, there's like a fax machine and so that's one of those things where you're like, oh, if you only knew.
Yeah, no, there's like I mentioned the AI thing where it's like something it's like oh you had no idea where this is going.
Yeah,
You're very right, but you probably had no idea how crazy it would get.
yeah. Like your fax machine on the desk like pales in comparison to a phone.
A smartphone.
Yeah,
It's like you don't understand. It's like you barely probably understand because that in like yeah 2002 the internet would still have been kind of wild westy.
mm-hmm.
Like, did MySpace even exist at that point? Like basically social media wouldn't have existed. That was still a point in time where search engines were it was not just Google. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if like Yahoo or something was actually the biggest search engine at the time.
You know, some Ask Jeeves.
Yeah, Alta Vista. Um, but so because in a way the internet is now because is very much junk space. Facebook is like a digital version of a abandoned mall. Instagram's kind of starting to be that too.
Yeah,
It's whereas like in 2001, 2002, that would have been much less the case because so much more of the internet was just like compartmentalized, like individual websites that didn't like run together. There weren't like centralized enclosed areas like digital shopping malls, like a Twitter, Facebook, Instagram type deal.
yeah. So this part that I was talking about, which is like right below what you were,
Mm-hmm.
just the very end. He says because he says emissaries of junk space pursue you in the formerly impervious privacy of your bedroom. And then he gives some old examples that aren't relevant anymore, really, like the
Yeah.
fax machine. But at the end of that, it says miniature profit centers coexist with your bedside Bible. And so
Yeah.
it's like, oh man,
Yeah.
the phone that I basically like place on the like pedestal of honor every night, where I'm like, okay, phone,
Yeah.
you can sleep here next to me. You like little miniature profit center.
Yeah. Oh, very much.
To you.
Luckily, I have two separate phones. Though I'm usually here with both of them, so I guess that doesn't really matter. But it's a step in a direction of trying to avoid that. Just one phone that pretty much I just use for texting and just phone stuff and a little bit of internet. And then my other phone where it's all much more businessy stuff.
I yeah, I don't have access to my business email on my phone. That's my attempt. It's like only on
Yeah,
my computer.
that's probably a good idea.
But it's a little miniature profit center for like, not for me.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Uh
for somebody.
yeah, for a couple different it's a little miniature profit center for Apple and
Mm-hmm.
uh what was I just thinking? Yeah, I and man, you can't not have it. I tried for a very short time to not do a phone like a few years ago
Yeah.
because I walked into a Bradley's pool with
Mm-hmm.
the cell phone in my swimsuit pocket.
Yeah, and just killed it.
Killed it, and I was like, well, what happens if I don't have it? So I set up a phone number with Google so that essentially people could call me if I was on my computer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's just too nice to have the phone. Like it's way too nice. Yeah, so I could like get calls and texts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like if I was at my computer. But yeah, I could stay away. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
that cool.
Yeah,
Not
I
that I
know
even think
it's.
it. Not that I even think it's that bad. I don't know.
No, I mean, I don't know. I think sometimes it's like, man, how much productivity do I actually lose from screwing around with a phone? Probably a lot. But also my computer does that too, so I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say I lose the most productivity just from YouTube on my computer when I. It's like the my pre-work ritual is basically like opening a YouTube
Mm-hmm.
tab, like straight up like like mindlessly scrolling down it,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to like consciously stop myself from doing that because otherwise
You just keep going.
you almost go like brain dead for a second. It's really weird because I've like watched myself do it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've like consciously been like, okay, what am I doing? And it's taken like 15 minutes, and all I've been doing is
Mm-hmm.
like eyes point to different directions as I like
Like,
scroll slowly down YouTube.
you like literally haven't done anything. Just it's like you're not even like looking for anything anymore. You're just scrolling.
Yeah, it's kind of what happens, and then you get like random stuff. It's a little different from the weird late night things I go down. That's where it's like I don't even know. A part of my brain needs to be babysat, and I like find it a random thing, and I watch like anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty tired.
Yeah. I'm gonna be starting the Tour de Provo tomorrow at the rec center.
You just
Something to do.
you just
I don't know. It sounds fun.
wait. Is that you're just gonna walk around Provo? Or is this like a thing?
No, it's at the rec center where you use the exercise bikes to bike as far as you can. And if you bike the furthest, you win. I probably won't win,
Oh,
but I signed up for it a couple weeks ago.
cool.
I don't know how it works exactly.
Well,
I guess you scan a QR code or something if you've registered or something. See how it goes.
well, whenever you do that, there's depending on how long your Tour de Provo is, I'll probably like root for you as I wander around the.
Yeah.
Because at 11 I'll
I'll
be.
be in like the cycle
Yeah.
room. I have a feeling I'll show up there tomorrow and it's already gonna be full.
Mm,
I was talking to a coworker. She used to be a manager at the rec center.
probably there's not that many bikes.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's quite a few in that room, but still, like, she made it sound like people get really into it, and it gets
There's quite.
like she's like there are people that are there like all day. It's like I'm not doing that, but I'll
I
go
mean,
in for like an hour or two tomorrow.
no, I think you should be there as long like you should win.
All
You should
day.
be in it to win it. In that case, whenever you know, I'll be like the roadside assistance, and then I'll come in with like one of those like little honey sticks.
Just bring like food and water in.
Yeah.
Just never leave the bike. No, no, yeah. Cause yeah, tomorrow's the first day, and then it goes through for like a month.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you have like a month to just bike as much as you can. So who knows? I haven't done an exercise bike in a while. I don't actually like them that much, but then again, I haven't used because the ones in the actual cycle room are different than the ones that they have like along the track.
Yeah, the ones in the cycle room are spinning bikes.
Yeah, I have a feeling those won't be as weird.
Yeah, I don't know. I just
Like, especially the reclined ones. I don't like the reclined bikes. Or whatever the
yeah,
technical
I don't know
term
what
is.
those are. Okay.
Yeah, I should
Bless
sleep.
you if you ever make it to the end of this podcast.
I don't
I
even
doubt
know.
anyone ever will.
Oh, it looks like there was one person.
Whoa, who's there?
I don't know. I don't even know if there's a way to check.
Make yourself known.
They're not doing it.
It's probably
We've had one concurrent viewer.
it's probably Madeline, and it's probably just on her phone, but I
Yeah.
don't know if it's actually maybe.
Our peak was 5. I want. That's quite a few.
Hopefully we would actually gotten into talking about interesting stuff at that point and not still bumbling around. I think we were still bumbling.
Who knows?
Not that it matters, but
Well, I guess we're done.
yeah.
Whoever's here,
Good night and good luck.
good night. Everybody, including me.